better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it, is something that like a 6th grade social studies teacher would say.
It's like something that my dad said to me a billion times when I was a kid.
Always with the fucking webcam.
What? I was like, shut up, Dad.
I don't want any video. It's not you, it's me. It's my CPU. Craig.
That's what they said right before they left the Zoom call.
Okay. I left early, sorry.
I have faith in them.
I left in shame.
Yeah, you made everyone leave. You made everyone run away.
I did.
You got run away. That's what you did.
I know.
Actually, Scott made Jesse run away, actually, more accurately.
No, Scott.
Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. I understand now. It's fine.
I take responsibility. I put you in a weird position there. It's okay.
It did. A little bit.
I accept your love as a constant yet not necessarily explicit stream of support, and
is this directed to me?
It is. It was supposed to be. I mean, if you're ready to hear it.
I'm very ready.
Don't mind me. I'm just here.
Were we going to start with current events, or were we going to go into our topic? It's up to you guys.
I want to talk about the gender reveal party that started a wildfire.
Go off!
Oh, yeah.
Well, the only thing I have to say about it is that I just learned that this is the second time a gender reveal party has started a wildfire, and there was also a time where a pipe bomb went off at a gender reveal party and killed somebody, and there was the third one that I don't remember now, but it was similar, violence. So stop having gender reveal parties, y'all.
They're bad.
The point of that.
Wasn't one of the wildfires started by a cop or something who had a gender reveal party?
That sounds very...
Yeah, I think that was the last one.
Yeah, I can't tell you. I didn't read the whole thing.
There's so many fires being started by gender reveal parties. Who knows anymore?
At this point, it's 2020. Shit, everything that happens, you're just oh, yeah, of course it was a cop. Of course it was... whatever.
I really understand the point of gender reveal parties. It just seems like a pointless thing that upper middle class people do.
It's the commodification of every aspect of life. It's neoliberal culture. I mean, we have turned we have turned creation into an act of commodification. And gender reveal parties in the forest fires that have started as a result are a part of that.
We have a holiday. We celebrate Thanksgiving, which is just revisionist history garbage, and then immediately follow that by stampeding each other to death to get a fucking flat screen at Walmart. So why wouldn't we have gender reveal parties starting fucking wildfires?
Like Columbus Day, which is genocide day, basically.
We don't have healthcare in this country, but we have Black Friday stampedes and gender reveal forest fires. So we're a unique empire.
Oh, and the whole thing with Labor Day being moved to September from May Day because Grover Cleveland didn't want people to be reminded of all of the unrest.
The Haymarket affair? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking, they're...
Why you don't have Armistice Day?
Oh, Armistice Day?
Do we have Armistice Day, Joe?
No, we call that Veterans Day in this country, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
Because, again, with the revision...
Because no one's braver than our troops!
I laugh so hard about that. It's why shouldn't we call them that? I mean, not entirely, because a lot of people who end up in the armed services are people who are economically conscripted into it. But for the most part, it's these days it's people who are volunteering, and it's mostly chuds anyways.
I saw the most explicit exploiting the nature of capitalism, not even the human beings. Just using capitalism as an explicit wedge to get people enrolled in the military on the T. And it was many men are losing out on $55 trillion because they haven't signed up for the selective service.
What the fuck?
It's a requirement to apply for a lot of college grants and applications, which is how a lot of people are, they're forced to give her, if you were assigned male at birth and haven't changed that by the time that you are hit college, and you don't apply, you can't get any financial aid. Unless you have signed up for a select service. So if you're not filthy rich and you don't want to go into student debt, what choices exactly do you have?
Actually, you don't have a choice because I had to sign up for the selective service so I could actually get FAFSA loans.
Yeah, any federal aid.
So, if you ever needed a more explicit, I don't even think I need to finish this thought.
It's more explicit than like when I was in high school. I'd have like recruiters from like the Air Force, the Army, and the Marines just outside the cafeteria, waiting for kids to come out of lunch or go into lunch, try to recruit people there.
Or in arcades when they have the arcade games with the plastic guns that have like Navy SEALs advertisements on the side.
Oh God, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Before Lethal Enforcer, you get the screen that tells you to like join the army.
Oh jeez.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot that's like geared towards like trying to like send like the subliminal messaging that like killing other people is like healthy and good. Like,
War is fucking cool, bro. That's the thing with the Twitch streams that they're doing, where they keep saying like, oh, this isn't a recruitment tool, but it's like, I've watched it before. It's just fucking army dudes talking about how fucking cool it is to be in the army. And they say it's not a recruitment tool, and I call bullshit.
I just watched rewatched the episode of The Simpsons where Bart is in a boy band that is brainwashing people to join the Navy last night.
Yvonne Niage.
Yvonne Niage. I don't know if that was like a satire on shit that actually happens. I just thought it was like a plot that they made up, but I don't know now.
Well, I mean, the ads that I can recall for the Navy and the Air Force and shit have like Godsmack in the background. So, I mean,
they're all some dude like climbing a mountain, and then he gets to the top of it and he like slays a fucking dragon, and it's like fucking hard ass rock music behind it. And it's like,
yeah,
you could be this cool if you join the army, and you could get money for college.
It's like a slow motion, like I need, you know what I need to find? I am going to go on a mission to find this particular ad.
Week for the army, and it was like a bunch of guys in a firefight, and at the end it was like, well, if you want like adventure, fun, and to be like a man, join the army. So fucking on the nose.
Yep. When in reality, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be directing drones to strike weddings and stuff. So
it isn't an accident that this is on the T and in public schools. It's not in private schools. It's not on the gigantic billboards where the rich people come in from the suburbs. It's really, really targeting people who have many fewer options. And that's heartbreaking because it's also, we're giving people PTSD. We're asking them to sell their brain capacity and ability to function.
Yeah, the attitude seems to be like, somebody's got to have a vastly reduced quality of life and lifespan and pass trauma onto their children. It might as well be you.
I mean, and it's even worse than that because we're compounding that with the indoctrination into an ideology where anybody that doesn't look like you isn't human.
I was at this bar in Brighton at the end of like last August, and I was having this conversation about like foreign policy, like foreign intervention. I think this is like right around the time the U.S. like pulled out of Rojava. And this older guy I was talking to, he was a veteran, and I was like, shouldn't we like not be like in foreign wars or like enforcing like global hegemony? And he goes, well, yeah, it'd be nice if like we weren't overseas, but like someone's got to do the killing. Someone's got to be shoved into the meat grinder.
Nuke the whales. Gotta nuke something.
Found the video.
Oh man, the music in this. Dun 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 dun. You could be this cool if you joined the Navy.
Oh, I remember this commercial growing up. Man, the music on that is hilarious. Like how aggressive it is.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, it's full 90s
dun, dun, dun.
hard rock. It's great.
I mean, I think we are in agreement that the military exploits the poor and then uses poor to exploit other nations. I'm not sure how much more we can say.
Yeah, that about sums it up.
The story of empire, unfortunately. It's always kind of been the way it's been.
Yeah.
Joe, do you want to go into the next topic, or what do you want to do?
I'm paying attention to the news that much this week, but like, the one thing I did see this week that was somewhat interesting is the Postmaster General is in trouble again. This time, he's been accused of committing campaign finance fraud at his like place of former employment. Before he went to go, do his current job, he was encouraging his employees to donate to the GOP and then reimburse them under the claim that it was like this reimbursement were like, oh, we're giving them bonuses.
This is a Trump appointee, right?
Yeah.
I guess no one is surprised.
Yeah, I wasn't even slightly surprised. Like, what did you expect them to do? This is the United States. Like, corruption is a bipartisan thing. Like, if this was like, I don't know, Bill Gates, George Soros, or whatever, or Tom Steyer, whatever, billionaire that gives money to the Dems. Like, if the shoe was on the other foot, it still wouldn't really be that much of a surprise.
I think it would have been more of a surprise. I think a lot of the lack of surprise here is just Trump has done so many things that it's really hard to be surprised when, he was lying before he got in office and ran a fake university and then lied about having contact with Russia and then lied more about everything said on Twitter. And also he said that he did ogle girls behind at Miss Universe and then later said he didn't, but he's previously caught on camera saying he did. It's not like this is they agree that he was doing. And just denials after denials and putting in people in place and firing them at willy-nilly. And a lot of people who have been in trouble have been appointed by him or pardoned by him for reasons that are problematic. And it's really hard to be surprised for all of them and us properly horrified for all of them. And I wish I could, because every single damn lie is terrifying when it's part of a larger picture.
It'd be crazy though. It'd be crazy if Trump's steaks were actually really good, I think.
That was the turning point.
I don't know. I think probably part of my cynicism towards the Democrats has to do with I came of age in the Obama years, where you got to see firsthand Obama talking at both sides of his ass, being oh, we're gonna do cap on trade, but at the same time Obama was bragging about how under his administration the United States is now the number one oil producer on the planet, or oh, we're gonna do immigration reform, but also under my administration began the program of throwing kids in cages and shit like that.
Reporter-in-chief.
Winning the Nobel Prize, but drastically expanding the drone program and committing war crimes, and also assassinating American-born citizens overseas with drones.
Shitty policy, yes. Outright lies, no. And he would have been hung so fast for that. But there is not an outright lie from Obama, other than bad joke. But he's allowed to joke about his birth certificate because he was given enough shit about it.
He did lie at the beginning of his presidency when he said he campaigned on it, and he also promised to pull troops out of Afghanistan, and then he said...
And closing Guantanamo.
And yeah, he also promised to do that, and that still hasn't happened. It's I'm going to end the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and what he ended up doing was he sent 30,000 troops to Afghanistan and Iraq, in the first year of his presidency.
Yeah, I can't help but notice the parallel there to fucking Richard Nixon, who was elect me, and I will tell you my secret plan to end the Vietnam War. And then he got elected, and his secret plan was to keep the Vietnam War going for a long time.
Nixon is not in direct ways, and certainly not in personality, but there is things that are comparable between Nixon and Obama.
The whole NSA thing was pretty fucking similar to the Watergate thing.
I'm totally okay with comparing Nixon and Obama. I am not okay with comparing Obama and Trump, to be clear.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, Obama was more aggressive than Nixon when it came to cracking down on whistleblowers.
True.
I do want to go back for a second and clarify whether Joe invented the phrase talking out both sides of his ass just now, or if that was a pre-existing couple of idioms that he put together ingeniously.
That's definitely a pre-existing thing. I did not come up with that.
But that's the thing, though. Is it actually two pre-existing things that you combined, or have you heard that that full phrase before?
I've heard that whole phrase. My dad says it all the time, actually.
Okay, so maybe
so his dad invented it.
Maybe it's an Irish Catholic thing. I don't know.
Probably.
These are the important conversations that we have on this podcast.
Yes.
I mean, I think we can agree it's a proletarian thing. We can own it. It's ours now.
All right, great.
The phrase or the act?
The act, the skill of being able to talk.
The act of that would be logistically challenging.
Out of your ass, I guess.
Both sides of your ass.
I think it would be logistically challenging.
Okay. Yeah.
It's gonna haunt me.
All right, so moving along.
Go off.
I have nothing.
He doesn't have anything.
Joe off.
Joe off.
So we were gonna
Kit, go first.
Get off.
So we were going to talk about just how capitalism completely destroys mental health. And I kind of started at the most depressing end. So I actually found WHO statistics on what causes suicide. And they tracked all suicides in 63 countries from 2000 to 2010. Their average of 233,000 a year, of which 45,000 were tied to losing employment, which is kind of insane. There's a lot of suicides we don't really know the cause of. Relationships is another one. Health is another one. But 45,000 out of 233,000 is like a fifth, which is kind of insane because losing your job shouldn't be the end of the world, and it certainly shouldn't be the end of your life. I found some stuff specific to the US, though there's remarkably less for the US. So there's a 2014 Gallup poll on people who are unemployed. So if you've been unemployed for 5 weeks, you have a 1 in 10 chance of undergoing treatment for depression or starting undergoing treatment for depression. After a year, you have a 1 in 5 chance for undergoing treatment for depression. And that's depression starting after your unemployment, lasting at least 2 weeks, like clinical depression, not like depression that pre-existed there, which is really concerning. And this is highest among men, and highest among men in particular who think that they are entitled to a stable, well-paying job and the respect that comes with that. And to an sort of absurd degree, that determines a lot of how people seem to think about their self-identity and self-respect. And that's more true of men than women, at least in the US. This is a little bit messy for a couple of reasons. One is I'm looking at actual suicides. I shouldn't say actual suicides here. Not attempted suicides. This is where people died. Men tend to use guns more often and therefore end up dead more often from attempted suicides. So this somewhat understates reasons that most women go through suicidal feelings, but a lot of that is also tied to financial instability, if not employment itself, which is, I guess, like the concerning place to start. So I started searching for anecdotes of people who were unemployed or particularly who lost their job and what people were saying. And I found this TED Talk, which is kind of horrifying, about how people's identity decreases. And a man in particular often thinks of himself in a very singular way, in a very singular role as the breadwinner. And that is his identity, his self-respect, his value. And to a large degree, that's what we reinforce into society. And even fathers with children who provide a lot more emotionally and developmentally to their family than they necessarily have to do monetarily wise are incredibly ashamed of losing their jobs because it's like losing their value because they don't see the other value that they bring. And especially when there's other reasons you might not want to go on, that shame is really, really problematic. And it manifests in a whole bunch of other ways in the way that we look at culture now. And it's hard to say, but it makes a lot of sense that if you go to a party and first question out of most people's mouths is, well, what do you do? Meaning, what do you get paid to do? Meaning, what's your job? As if that is more of your identity than anything else about you. And that's concerning and constantly reinforced in dating, especially by people who would partner, but also in other ways, just the invisibility of people who are poor in a lot of cultural identities and icons. That's particularly true of people who, so gay men, there's a lot of people who are gay now entering the media, but very, very few of them are poor and gay. And that even when there are other things going on, even when it's not just about that, it's still kind of terrifying. And I have some more demographics notes, but I wanted to start there.
As a side note, we'll be touching on the sort of overemphasis on employment as a measure of kind of identity next week.
Yeah, what came to mind for me was I have in my adult life used several dating apps, and I remember specifically from POF, if you don't specify your income, the app kind of scolds you and it says your income is the number one determinant in selecting a compatible partner.
That's plenty of fish.
Yep.
All right, well, I'm never fucking using that.
Yeah.
That is super shitty, and I wonder if it does the same thing to straight women.
Well, for a lot of dating apps, it's like a popularity contest in that women are explicitly asking for men who have a car, have a high-paying job, and can basically take care of them. And I think it leads a lot of men to believe that that's how dating is. And so just in general, that women only care about wealth and...
It's a reinforcement of like incredibly negative gender roles.
Yeah, like it
Yeah.
it perpetuates this existing kind of idea of like the gender dichotomy and the typical roles played by men and women in relationships, but also like basic power dynamics.
Dating apps are like a really amazing mirror for society. I would highly recommend anyone to read Cataclysm by Christian Rudder, who was one of the founders of OkCupid. It's really gross and fascinating.
It's also interesting to see some of the... I am closer to, I guess, women-only circles than I ever will be to men-only circles. And some of the conversations around people's partners, whether someone's settling. And often the question there isn't, could you find someone more caring, who listens to you better, who's more reasonable of a human being, who has your values more? But the question is, couldn't you find someone who makes more money? Couldn't you find someone who has more social class and responsibility? Code word for just high-paying job.
Or is more conventionally attractive.
Oof.
I've had my clients are all male, and I mean, I've been told like if I'm in a relationship with somebody who's poor, that because I'm also poor, I don't stand a chance if a wealthier guy comes along.
And that's also BS, because that's not how love works.
Nope.
That's really not how love works.
Even if you do happen to be, in a relationship with someone who is very financially secure. Like I know there's a lot of people in our circles who are tech workers who actually do have like way more money than they need. It's never because, if you talk to their partners, it never has anything to do with wealth. It's always because, my partner came up to me wearing he was dressed like a robotic monk from a video game at a party, and he was really nice. And he was like, yeah, I work at Google. But I was like, oh, that's great, whatever. I don't care.
You hear that, everyone? Dress up as robotic monks, and you'll get them.
Dress up as Zenyatta from Overwatch. That's all you need to do.
Or just have wonderful hair. Wonderful hair gets you a long way.
That is
like,
a plus.
Wash, condition your hair, and just like much better.
I can attest to this. Also, and this is like cute but serious, being a cat dad is like I am shameless about this. I fucking love my cats, but connecting with fellow cat parents is a good way to start.
Hell yeah. Being a cat dad is mega kudos points right there.
That is adorable, and I am glad that makes a difference in the dating world.
I think it's honestly, in particular, like not just a cat parent, but like a cat dad, especially if you're like a cis dude. Like a lot of cis dudes, are conditioned not to show their feelings or whatever. My like background on my phone for the longest time, until I deleted it by accident, like I would still have it if I could remember where it was so I could put it up again. It was a picture of my partner like hugging both of his cats, and he has this look on his face that I just don't see very often. Because like it's okay for a cis guy to like shamelessly express love for his animals, and cats are extra good, dogs, whatever. I don't know. We're just using cats as an example because like Jesse has cats and we have cats, and it's a lot of cats. Joe's got cats. Everybody's got cats except for you two, I guess. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I have the virtual cat that is Hasuko Cat. So
Oh yeah, Hasuko Cat. Yeah, Hasuko Cat is.
How is he doing, bro? Is he okay?
Yeah, I think he's doing well.
Good.
I'm sure that when Scott looks at Hasuko Cat, like you can just see the love streaming out of his eyes.
Mixed with an extreme resentment for his owners, because
Yeah.
I've read owners, and I have issues. That's all I'm going to say.
Let me also throw this out there. I held my dad's hand like while he was in hospice, and it was easier emotionally for me to accept that my dad was dying and when he died than it was when Squirrel wouldn't take her eye drops. And that was the last time that I really cried because I felt like I couldn't be a good parent, essentially. Like, I have a love for Vinny and Squirrel, and I'm developing the same love with Mrs. Smudge Morgan, despite her behavioral quirks. That, like, it's like an unconditional love that's not tarnished by the bullshit that goes along with, like, just the bizarre mechanics of, like, human relationships. Like, my cats.
Egos.
Right, exactly. Because, like, my cats, they live rent-free, but you know what? I don't fucking care. Like, the love that they give me, the emotional satisfaction, their cute little faces, I will clean their shit forever if I have to, because they were there for me when my life was hard, and I love them. Shout out to Benny and Squirrel and Smudge.
Yeah, it's a very pure kind of love. A very, like, I don't know, different than being in a romantic relationship.
We do teach people, specifically men, not to show emotions, or at least the full range of emotions. And consistently around animals, the full range of emotions comes out, and that is wonderful. And it's not just cats, but cats are also wonderful, and I wish I could have one.
Hamsters are pretty cool.
You can have hamsters, and hamsters are like even smaller bundles of love.
They are, and sometimes they sunbathe. I've never seen a hamster sunbathe before. This is wonderful.
Really? Did they sunbathe on their backs, or what?
He crawls up onto a towel I gave him and finds the sunniest spot and then curls up into a bowl in it. And this is very odd, but also adorable.
Fucking adorable.
The relationship between an animal and the sun is a very wonderful, basic one.
All right, I could talk about how much I love my fucking cats for days, but unfortunately, capitalism is alive and well, and it is sucking our well-being out of us like a time and wealth extracting vacuum.
Immiseration machine go burr.
Yeah.
And depending on the amount of emotional energy your job is valued at, it is likely valued more if it requires less emotional investment. Things that require more emotional investment are seen as feminine, or if they're taken over by enough people who are femme, then they are devalued, which is terrifying. And then people who rise to the top of corporate death-killing fruit ladder tend to be psychopaths, actually. So that one too. Let's show off the worst of us and make them all rich, and then pretend that they want to give money back to us somehow.
It's almost as though there's something inherently messed up about the system.
There seems to be like a sensible reason as to why 20% of tech CEOs display psychopathic tendencies.
Likely more than that.
Yeah.
Depending on how well we expect people to hide things.
It sounds like a low estimate.
Yeah, people who don't give a fuck about other people, people who are fine with stepping on the corpses of their business rivals to ascend to the very top.
There's a lot of them.
Probably not the most empathic amongst us.
Exploiting their employees way, way more. Or like cutting the fat of businesses, meaning lay off people who were making money, but not quite enough money for your taste.
Right. I mean, I was being maybe stupidly tongue-in-cheek. Seems like the corporate overlords consider everybody to be a small business owner.
Oh, I'm a small business owner?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Well, no, you might not be, but you could be. Anybody could be.
Oh, the potential is there.
Yes.
So fifth dimensionally,
right.
In some universe, I'm a small business owner. Well, thank you, capitalism. I
mean, in
I
theory,
like the perspective.
And
Thank
if you're
you.
not right now, it's your fault. It's your fault.
Clearly.
Because it's like, if you drive for Uber, man, like, that's yours, dude. That's your car. You're putting your own gas in it. You know, those people that are riding in it, those are your clients, man.
Yeah.
I used to be a Lyft driver. Can confirm.
It's on you to figure out how to make enough off of that to eat. So
straps.
Yeah.
You gotta pull them up. Also, I was wondering, because we were talking about employment and how often like insurance is connected to employment, and that is a way that capitalism kind of bars people from seeking mental health assistance. And I'm just wondering if there's any other ways that you've noticed or that we could detail about how capitalism has kind of put like a mechanism in the way for people not to get help and kind of perpetuate the problems.
So there's a couple of different ways. One of which is it's just time. One of the things that people who are poor have less of is time. And it is incredibly hard to take an extra hour if you are physically exhausted. It is incredibly hard if you need to cook because you can't do takeout. Every time that we have something that's hard to do, there's generally a way to pay a little bit more and wait in line a little bit less. And that is incredibly frustrating because if you are privileged enough to have a home internet or privileged enough to be able to order takeout on occasion or have a fridge and are able to cook and store leftovers rather than needing to buy things as you go, that makes a difference. So there's if you have a therapist who's available from 9 to 5 and you are stuck working a 9 to 5 shift, that sucks. And there's very little that's possible there. Gas costs money. Where therapists are available is incredibly biased. The setup for insurance is done problematically. The better your job, likely the better your insurance. It's unlikely you'll have short-term disability or long-term disability insurance offered if you have a job that is physically demanding, which is the most likely reason you would need short-term or long-term disability. And generally there's a medium term that is not covered, which is really shit if anything happens. There's a lot of stuff with mental health that just takes time and a little bit of space, and pressure messes with that to an absurd degree. And the amount of pressure that someone's in for being on the edge financially is rather extreme. We pretend that everyone's a business, that they have this in and out system that they have to optimize for, but in reality, that is coming out of human. Like, we don't work like that, and putting up the energy to do that is coming out of people's lives.
I mean, I personally love the phrase, it takes a village to raise a kid. Like, people can give what they are capable of giving at a certain time. Also, it doesn't help when people who aren't currently experiencing a mental health problem suggest to somebody with depression that they would feel better if they got up and did something, got exercise or whatever.
That if you just simply try harder, you won't feel bad anymore.
Right, as if the depression itself isn't a factor in not having the motivation to get up and do something about that depression.
Or that if you try a little harder, your anxiety problems will just completely fade into the ether.
Yeah, just dive into your work harder. And
just be happy.
Just think positively.
That you're here.
Just, you know what? You should do yoga. You do
It's
yoga.
not a bad idea, actually. I would like to say that if you're not depressed, that if you can start to exercise, it is a good thing to do, though. I recommend it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. If you have unprocessed trauma, sometimes yoga can release it in ways that are crappy and re-traumatizing. But in general, yoga is pretty cool.
I think yes on the depression thing. I think it's also like people who have bipolar, who are manic for any particular reason. Capitalism messes with that so much. It's so easy to say just don't spend like that. And it's so hard for people struggling to say no to spending when it's waved in front of their face over and over again.
Oh my god, yeah. I've bought so many stupid things I didn't need while manic.
And it's not like you can turn off ads. It's cruel.
Another thing that's really obnoxious is the conversation surrounding sleep hygiene. Because,
Oh, yeah?
fuck you, Scott.
No, I'm very curious
I'm
about
gonna
this
bring it up.
topic. Sorry, I'm very curious about this topic. I really am. Sorry. I didn't mean to sound flippant. Please continue.
You're so flippant.
I love you, man. Tell me about the sleep hygiene conversation, because I think it is actually a very important one to have.
I've had the conversation with every psychologist I've ever met with, and nothing has ever worked for me except for taking Benadryl, and it works every goddamn time. And I've been on stronger medications. Of course, I used to smoke weed to deal with this, and it's been very hard, in recovery, to figure out a way that I can actually sleep a decent amount. I've been an insomniac my whole life, and when I was younger, I thought it served a purpose, because I'd be tossing and turning in my bed till 2 a.m, and then I would realize, my 5th grade self would be oh shit, I didn't do my math homework or something like that. And as an adult, I have experienced experience sleep deprivation while clean to the degree that like I am hallucinating and I have no ability to be able to tell whether like a stationary car has been stationary for a while or is currently accelerating towards me. Like I can't tell if a bird that's flying down the street is gonna hit me or not. And it makes dealing with and loud noises are extremely difficult to cope with. Having no emotional threshold, not being able to tell if there's something wrong with my computer monitor or if it's my fucking eyeballs that are blurry. Like no amount of talking out my problems was ever able to help me with that. And I'm not saying that that's not something that can help, but like when you're dealing with mental illness or when you're dealing with like a circadian rhythm problem, and especially for somebody like me who's in recovery, like I have to tackle every problem on multiple fronts. And it usually consists of something that's, you know, like medical, which means talking to a psychiatrist and trying different things, which does require, if you don't have the luxury of, like I do, being on Medicare, it means that you have to pay for the appointment and you also have to pay for the medication. In addition, usually some kind of peer support, as well as like a more sort of traditional therapy, which again can be extremely expensive depending on what options are available to you. So it's not like you can just snap your fucking fingers and become a normal functioning human being. Like everybody's brain is incredibly unique. Like I went to school and I took psychopharmacology and like we still don't know how the brain works. We fucking don't.
Nope.
It is a black box and we are still trying to figure out just even the most basic, like we didn't even know how anesthesia worked until like last week. We got some insight into the way that it binds with proteins.
We're still not totally sure how lithium works, and I've been on that shit for 14 years.
This is terrifying to hear.
So what I'm trying to say is that
Better the muscle relaxants I'm on, they have absolutely no idea how it works.
It's very comforting. My point here is that everybody needs a specific, like an individualized treatment plan that has to be something that like it's a lot of trial and error. It takes fucking time. Like it's taken me my whole life to learn how to cope with some of this shit. And I'm still working on it, you know? I have to be diligent about it. Right now, I am not confident enough to say that I would do well working a 40-hour work week. But not everybody has that luxury. In fact, most people don't have that luxury. Most people have to work that much or more just to be able to fucking survive. And that alone drives people completely up the wall.
True, the average American works 47 hours a week, with 18% of the workforce working 60 hours or more per week.
Right, and 8 or 15% of those, depending on who you ask, are working more than one job.
And 18% of people above the age of 65 are still working because they can't afford to retire.
And more than one job falls disproportionately on all the groups that it always fell proportionately on, particularly people who are not white.
Yeah, mostly black people.
Cis hetero.
Plus, I feel like a lot of folks of older generations, you know, boomers and up, were raised with kind of like in a world that had even more rigid and kind of, I don't want to say primitive, that's a word that my parents use a lot, but like, you know what I mean, attitudes about mental health, and it's easier for someone of advanced age to think of themselves as like, oh, I'm just lazy, or I just need to get my act together, or whatever, than it is for like a Zoomer, because they didn't grow up with the internet. And when, you know, that's even, there are some open-minded older folks out there, but when you didn't grow up in a world that has an internet, I think you're a lot more likely to ingest kind of harmful attitudes toward yourself and your health and what you should do about it.
Well, also, I think that is how people cope with a world in which everybody is taught individualism. The only way to, I guess, feel justified is to judge the shit out of everybody else.
Right.
Especially for white people, there is a huge difficulty in any amount of socialization or like talking to people, just any amount of social interaction that's free. If people want to meet up with a friend, they want to go buy coffee. If people want to go for a night out, they want to pay for a bowling lane or go to a bar or spend money in some way. This does not apply to people who are Black and applies very differently to various different types. It does apply to people who are Asian, though to a lesser degree. And that means that people are incredibly isolated, especially white people making less than, well, whatever the people around them are making. But especially, there's a number that's thrown out a lot that's $60,000. But depending on where you live, it can be more or less than that. That if you can't pay to belong, people get over and over and over told that they don't belong. Whereas if you can pay, you're allowed to get away with not caring about people, which is incredibly damaging in and of itself.
I mean, even my experience, like, I love my, fellow recovering addicts in NA, but, like, they would go paintballing, or I remember there was one dinner that I ended up spending, like, $100 on for someone's birthday, and I was like, well, I guess that's my entire food budget for the foreseeable future. Like, it's very insidious. I never really had, like, the childhood experience of just kind of, being able to, like, have fun and, like, play baseball with your friends or whatever. I'm definitely born with some kind of, my brain chemistry has always been fucking off, but, like, I constantly wish for something like that as an adult. Like, the only place that's even remotely close is a bar, and I'm in recovery. I can't fucking meet people at a bar. Sorry.
That makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
the number of things I didn't do when I didn't have a job just because I couldn't do anything, and seeing that now, what can I invite to? It's really hard.
Yeah, unless you like hiking. Hiking seems to be a thing that people can still do.
Yes.
That requires car.
I have a car. Let's go hiking.
Comrades with cars, be generous.
Comrades with cars, go hiking.
I'm literally trying to think of something that we could all do, because I do have a car. And
I also have a car.
oh, that's right. There's a whole thing there about, like, people that are fit are more likely to want to do it, and getting fit in and of itself can be financially challenging.
My experience, at least, with depression is that I can easily self-sabotage before I'm even ready to leave the fucking apartment.
Right.
It is extremely hard. And the more that people get on my ass to tell me to exercise, the
less
worse
you wanna
I
do it.
feel about myself if I haven't.
I really used to just not exercise at all if there was not something that I really would want to do. Like, I used to make myself jog, but then my knee got all fucked up and I went to physical therapy for it, and they were like, here you go, you can fix it by doing these stretches every day. And I was like, great, I'm not going to fucking do that, so I just don't run anymore. And I used to take dance classes, but now I can't take dance classes much because of COVID, and I don't know.
I have to say I'm very proud of myself for swimming today. I went to
Nice.
the beach and I swam in the ocean like I had been saying I wanted to, and it was fantastic.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Absolutely fantastic. I recommend it for anybody who knows how to swim so that you don't drown. Because I mean, I like to swim out far, just because I get kind of like a feeling of freedom from that. But like, I also recognize that I grew up very privileged, and like I could take swimming lessons, and my mom wanted me to be on the fucking swim team, and that's a whole other weird thing, being an asthmatic fat kid in a Speedo. Having to wake up at like 3 a.m. to fucking go to a swim meet before school, and then getting the last place ribbon that just says participant on it. But I tried my fucking elementary school ass off.
The beach is a really good place to go. We are very lucky that we live near beaches. Typically you don't have to pay to get in there unless it's on the Cape, but we don't live close to the Cape. And you can just hang out and swim, and sit there and, hang out, drink a beer if you drink, whatever.
Or a Red Bull if you don't.
Yeah. I like to look for shells.
That was what we did. We chilled when we weren't in the water. We chilled and we like collected a bunch of cool looking shells and the volcanic rocks that float.
Yeah, those are dope. I have to say, I grew up in California where, we're kind of taught in American culture, that like seashells look like the shells that are here, and that like houses look like A-frames and colonials that you have here, and that it's hot in the summer and cold in the winter, and that grapes are purple and all these other things, which in where I grew up was completely different, and I always felt completely gypped. So when I moved to Massachusetts, I was like, fucking look at this seashell. It's perfect.
Question, is it like PC to say gypped?
Oh, you know what? It really isn't. I gotta stop saying that. Here, I'll think of a different word. Shafted. I got shafted. Look at this seashell. I got shafted by living in California, culturally, in terms of seashells.
cultural shafting. You hate to hear that, Craig.
Oh my god.
Be culturally shafted or grow up in a culture where like being passively racist is more or less semi-acceptable.
Yeah, that too.
Are you listening, South Boston?
Yeah, exactly.
Mic check.
For you. This is for you, Southie. Sidebar, my partner and I went to the grocery store at like 9 o'clock last night, and they were all out of ground beef except for the Mark and Donnie Wahlberg brand Wahlburgers ground beef. So that is what we bought and made hamburger helper with for dinner today.
I offer my condolences.
It tasted okay. Joe, do you want to talk about whatever you were going to talk about?
So the background is like, not only is like an eroding mental health, it's eroding physical health is like a background. Our life expectancy in the United States has actually been in decline for like 3 of the past 4 years.
And particularly, isn't it middle-aged men that are seeing the worst of it? Partly because of what we were talking about earlier with
Well,
suicide.
actually, it's 3 things actually that are causing our life expectancy to drop. One is because suicides have skyrocketed basically among all like demographic groups. In terms of like gender and age groups, they've gone up basically everywhere. Drug overdoses have skyrocketed amongst every age bracket, particularly among 25 to 34-year-old males, 35 to 44-year-old males, 45 to 54-year-old males. They have skyrocketed from about 30 deaths per 100,000 in 2012 to over 50,000 deaths per 100,000 in 2016. And the third factor that is causing the decline in our average life expectancy is the rate of liver disease, which is particularly pounding the men 55 to 75 and older. It's also increasing
Alcoholism.
Yes. Well, liver disease can be caused by other things besides alcohol. Particularly of note is that women 55 to 64 are also like part of like the major contribution to the rate of liver disease increasing. And then you have the material conditions in which like people are being ground down to death. Robert Reich tweeted today that the average minimum wage worker in the United States needs to work at 79 hours a week to afford a 1-bedroom rental apartment in 95% of U.S. counties. So
I saw that. That was fucking crazy. Like, I knew it was a lot, but 95% of U.S. counties, like, wow.
And like the average worker, as we said, like the average American works 47 hours a week. That's 100, and for perspective, the average American worker works about 137 hours a year more than the average Japanese worker, for example. The average American worker works 499 hours a year more than the average French worker. So we are being ground to death. We don't have a public healthcare infrastructure, really. We're being paid less to work more hours. And then you have neoliberal capitalism in particular is breaking down our society's generalized trust in other people. Like, there was a Pew study done on like social trust, like generalized trust, done in 2014. And as of 2012, only 19% of millennials say that, generally speaking, most people can be trusted, as opposed to 31% of Gen Xers and 40% of boomers. So because of the fact that like the millennial generation was really the first to be raised as like seen as like an investment, we were raised with the neoliberal ideology of everything is competition. So like, and so invariably that eventually entails that like every other individual that you encounter in society is competition, and so therefore cannot be trusted. And so that's why you have like only like 19% of millennials who say that other people be trusted. And so therefore it's impossible to have any kind of solidarity or any kind of mutual aid in a society where nobody trusts anybody, because everyone
That's so depressing.
Everyone is viewed as competition. So basically everybody who isn't like really well off is basically dealing with like the constant white noise of like paranoia and anxiety in their life, because there's a constant anxiety over, well, if I trust this person, they might screw me over.
That manifests in a number of different ways in regard to treatment of mental health problems too, because the vast majority of unhoused individuals are dealing with mental illness, and their experience with the system probably discourages them from seeking help.
Well, it's not just like the neoliberal idea of like everything is competition, but also like the way that like management is now run. Like there's these surveys taken on like anxiety of like school children between 1952 and 1993. They asked college students and school children to self-report their anxiety, and for both groups, reported anxiety across the body of research increased linearly over time. And the birth cohort change in anxiety is so large that by the 1980s, normal child samples of like anxiety were scoring higher than child psychiatric patients from the 1950s.
And like my mom was a school child in the 50s, and they had to do, it was the Cold War, so they had to do like drills and get under their desk and stuff. So it's not like they were living, happy, carefree lives either.
Yeah, they pretended they were getting bombed constantly, and not in like a cutesy way, in like a communist.
There's a cutesy way of doing that?
Yeah, bro. Yeah, like the way Republicans do it now.
The problem is like nowadays, like for example, I know I was looking at like everything is about like production, competition, being like constantly surveilled, and like the idea of like what is like average, like the goalpost keeps getting moved. Like it is unacceptable to be anything less than above average, and so you just keep pushing the button, so to speak, until they break psychologically. And that's kind of how employment works now, where there's this management strategy of like trying to maximize worker productivity by constantly having them in a fight or flight state, basically through like managing through stress, because like the like state of like stress will like in theory like increase worker productivity, but like that can't be sustained, and eventually that person will reach their psychological like go off the edge, sometimes literally as well as psychologically.
And the shittiest thing about that is that I can see where they're coming from. There is a certain type of fight or flight response, the flight response, that actually does make people really productive when they're activated in that way, but not the rest of people whose default response is fight or freeze or submit. That's just torture.
And we also have like so much of American industries being monopolized. So like with unemployment as high as it is a lot easier to just churn through employees and offer almost nothing, offer no benefits, and continue to basically wave a shitty low-paying job in front of somebody's nose as like, here, a drop of salvation in these times, in these uncertain times, and then just fucking crank through that employee, fucking working them into the ground, and then find somebody else.
Actually, that's literally this. Even before the pandemic, this is actually UPS and Amazon's business model when it comes to their warehouse employees. I would know from personal experience is like they churn you out. They like keep you. They manage you through like constantly berating and screaming and shouting at like the workers to keep you in this like fight or flight state to maximize productivity until you physically or psychologically, because warehouse work is pretty physically intensive, you either physically or psychologically break down, and then you burn out, and then you just basically like can't keep up anymore, and then they get replace you with someone else, and they start the whole cycle over again.
Yeah, and even like less quote unquote menial jobs. Like I used to work in law firms that were pretty much revolving doors because the work was shitty and you were expected to work long hours. You couldn't do your job if you didn't.
While it applies less, it's certainly the case that this applies to some degree in higher paying jobs as well. I work in tech. I know a lot of people who work in tech. And the pay is pretty good, but the amount that people are treated as interchangeable, that somehow we could just replace each other at the drop of a hat, is terrifying and not at all accurate. But people are consistently taught that way by managers, as if someone else could easily take over this job and it wouldn't take a year of training, even though the reality is that it would take a year of training. And everyone's always expected to give 110%, and that doesn't work. So you have turnover, even though turnover really hurts actually developing any sort of software, and generally in other technologies too.
Yeah, I used to date a guy who worked at Amazon, and he said that that was pretty much the case with the being replaceable. So that I guess hey, for Amazon it's true on the warehouse level and it's true in the programming level.
It's kind of insane like how employment is nowadays, because like it really is like it's less expensive to run through workers who are peak productivity and then basically dump them over when they go over the edge, than it is to keep them at like a psychologically sustainable level of like stress. And like you see this in the way that like there's no really concept of like a career anymore, like in the way like, oh, there's like no expectation that a company is going to actually like look out for your best interests and like just try to work you to death anymore, in the way that like I had these like conversations with like older relatives and like going on about like how they have this like expectation that like companies are supposed to actually take care of their workers and pay them well. It's like, in my experience, it's like the opposite, really.
Yeah, it's like you owe them something.
Oh, us for allowing us the privilege of exploiting your labor.
Yes, yeah. They're
And
job,
even if you
job
go ahead.
creators, Joe.
Job creators. And even if you work somewhere that does kind of play into the whole like, we're gonna take care of you, here's a veggie tray, you know, like play $5 for yoga at lunch kind of thing. It's still, you know, that's great, sure, but the basic, that's always just like the chocolate frosting on the dog poop, as to steal a phrase from my friend Angel.
It's generally a trick to get people to stay late and work more hours.
Yeah, I wish I could have Carlene tell some of the stories about Star Market, because like the benefits are like
Grocery stores are the worst. Yeah.
employees don't get fucking, first off, they don't get any benefits, but like the cutesy, like, you know, little break room parties or whatever, like they give employees expired food.
Ugh.
That's hitting a nerve for me.
Sounds about as bad as my company. Like they don't even try to do any of that cutesy stuff. It's like they don't really try to sugarcoat it, but at the same time it's like, can you like stay like an extra 8 hours even though you did this yesterday?
And they don't even give you expired drugs.
Or they'll
Man.
call me at 5 o'clock in the morning because someone called out of work and they want me to be at work in 2 hours at 5 a.m.
Literally, and you're expected to answer the phone.
Yes.
I'm very tempted to put in post the song by NoFX called Pharmacist's Daughter.
I guess we'll have to wait and find out.
Do
how
it.
that goes.
Well, I will.
Get us a copyright strike. No, I'm kidding. 20 seconds.
Fair use.
I don't dare to worry, so I'm feeling late. I'm in love with her, the pharmacist's daughter. She got my love, I get her drugs.
Seems to depend place to place who like which account manager is shittier than the others, because like I got sent out to Gloucester and like they actually were fairly reasonable despite the hours. Like, here, we're gonna send someone else to go get you breakfast.
But then you don't get your little moment of freedom at the Dunkin' Donuts.
Well, I was out in Gloucester and they literally just like, here, you're gonna sit in this office chair, just hang out, just scroll through Twitter or something.
Dude, growing
like
up in
10 hours.
Gloucester, they live in a different era. Like,
They do.
it tracks, but like not for good reasons. More like because half of the population just doesn't even cross the drawbridge. So it takes too fucking long.
In some ways, it does feel like the 21st century has yet to reach Gloucester.
Is there like a large mob presence out there, do you think?
Yes.
The deep ones are out there.
Oh yeah, them too. That's where they're.
You know, it's funny. I was out in Newburyport last week, and for some reason, I couldn't stop thinking about that.
What, the deep ones?
Or the mob.
Well, no, the deep ones, because I was like standing right in front of like the Atlantic Ocean.
Be cool if the deep ones had their own mafia. I'd read that story.
Just so we're clear, you pronounce Cthulhu like Cthulhu, like
You're sneezing?
Yeah, like you're disgusted.
Like hawking up some, yeah.
Oh, God, Jesus.
Hey man, I didn't. It was that's a Lovecraft craft.
Blame that racist. He came up with it.
Yeah, that fucking guy.
There was a video in my like YouTube recommended videos recently that said, how racist was H.P. Lovecraft? And I was like,
Pretty fucking racist.
I'm not even gonna watch this. Maybe another time.
It's insane that like suicide is like the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and it's the second leading cause of death among people under the age of 35.
I know, dude. Like, the American dream is such a fucking... It's like a joke. I mean, it was always somewhat of a fallacy. I mean, it might have been true for, like, white men, maybe. But it's becoming a joke. Like, nobody in America really believes in the American dream.
That's my grandparents and the people who watch MSNBC, I guess.
Except for the people that are like old enough to remember when it wasn't a joke, really.
Yeah, when college cost, what was it?
2 paper clips and like
2 paper clips and an oath against communism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not.
Out against communism.
I just wanted to state that startups and other ways that people think of as pulling yourself up by your bootstraps or making a lot of money all require an incredible amount of privilege in order to possibly waste 5 years. And that's not doable if you have loans. That's not doable unless you have an incredible amount of privilege and incredible amount of free time. And the assumption that everyone can do that is obnoxious and absurd.
Hell yeah. That's like the capitalist class version of like, oh, if you're depressed, why don't you just get out of bed? It's like, oh, well, if you're not making enough at your job, why don't you just invent something?
Actually, when I complain about my poverty wages, everyone in my family tells me to go get another job.
Why didn't you invent Flappy Bird?
Or like,
In the middle of a recession where the current unemployment rate in Massachusetts is over 16%, sure, I'll go find another job.
yeah, most of the guys, like I know a lot of people our age roughly who, the ones who have paid off their loans already did it by somehow buying a house and then renting the house out. So like, why don't you become a landlord? Like, why don't you become...
Yeah, just suck the fucking life force out of everybody else
Yeah, get a leg up.
to be okay.
That's what it's going to be in the future. We're all going to be sucking off of each other just to survive.
Going in
All
You
gonna
heard
be
it here
sucking
first.
off each other. Fully automated luxury gate-based communism to the extreme. We're all just in a
Giant circle.
Sucking each other off. Yep.
That's the future that liberals want.
It's even better in anti-gravity.
But it is super annoying to be told to like betray your class in order to not drown.
Like the basic empathy required.
Yeah.
It's also like, can you like just disregard any sense of empathy that you may or may not have, so that like maybe you might be okay, but like you're stepping on the necks of like 8 other people.
Next stepping.
Even when I wasn't necessarily financially secure, like it always seemed to me if somebody asked if I could get them some fucking food when they didn't have any, like that money is obviously going to better use feeding somebody else than, I don't know, whatever I thought I needed or wanted. Like I'm definitely at the point now where it would just be absurd to keep every penny that I'm taking in, which is why I'm going to plug mutual aid yet again.
Do it.
Yeah, there's a whole
Plug it.
list. There's a whole list of local Boston area mutual aid networks that you can donate to, and there are links on our website,
Donate to it. Just wanna do it.
comrade-rosie.org. Get involved.
Jesus.
And we here promise that it will feel really, really good. Like,
Yeah.
we're putting food in
I
someone's belly.
guarantee. Just click the getting involved link on comrade-rosie.org, and that's scroll. Use the scroll
You'll
button.
feel happy inside.
You will feel a lightness.
You will, I
The
guarantee
weight will be lifted.
you will
We
get
swear.
so many social credit points.
Yes.
Xi Jinping will let you survive.
Even if you don't live in Boston, why not donate to them anyway? They could use your support.
The social credit points will pay off when the Chinese takeover happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we
Social
are all
credit
part of
points
some like
redeemable
Chinese like
after.
police state simulation.
State capitalism for all who want it.
Yeah.
Pete Buttigieg capitalism.
Oh my
Oh,
fucking god.
Sidebar. We just bought a whole bunch of new cat foods, wet cat foods, to see if our cats will tolerate eating any different kind of food. And I made a spreadsheet of all of them so I can like catalog my cat's reactions. And a lot of them were like pate. So I was like writing, like fancy feast, chicken with vegetables, pate. And I didn't put the little like accent on the E, so I was writing like Pate. So I just kept thinking of Pate. I'm Pate Buttigieg. It's Pate Buttigieg, everybody.
I'm Pete Buttigieg.
I'm 6 years old, and I am on the task force for
I
the
don't
presidential transition.
But I have a good friend who works at Blue Cross Blue Shield.
And he likes throwing people off their house at church.
And he is a very nice
And fixing
guy.
rent prices.
Fixing bread prices.
He recommends buying a property and
He
renting it
recommends
out.
about property.
He also recommends spending most of your social events in wine caves.
Where's this child Buttigieg from?
Our minds.
He sounds like he's Eastern European.
It's true. Jesse's version sounds a little Russian
A
there.
vampire? Come on. What real vampire?
That's I feel like that's an insult to Eastern European people. I've known many, and they are lovely people. And that's just
All
kind
right,
of an
I'm
insult.
sorry.
My partner's.
Like, they're all, but like people hiding from the sun in wine caves. Like, who else hides from the sun in wine caves?
It's a
In
fair
my
point.
defense, there isn't a whole lot left for the left that I can do that's not ableist and or racist. So this is as nebulous of an impression of perhaps anybody that I can do in safety.
Yeah.
Kids,
Is
spend all
is
your
it,
time in the one cave.
With Eastern European Pete Buttigieg.
it? You can be a vampire and be from other places, right? I don't know.
Can we still be racist against Italian?
Oh, that's a good question.
Vampires, historically, mythology of Eastern Europe, though. Otherwise, you end up with like balls of blood that roll around, which don't count. Those aren't as cool.
Or sparkly dudes.
Well,
Sounds like
isn't that what Joe Biden is? He's just a ball of blood that rolls around. Sometimes his
Oh,
eye
no.
goes bloodshot.
He's kind of like a somewhat like sentient zombie.
Listen here, Jack.
Brains,
You're
Jack.
right.
Brains.
yeah.
Here, Jack, I'm not a radical socialist. I don't even know where I am.
Yep.
Jill, why are all these people here?
It's very unfortunate that Joe Biden's first name is Joe, because then we have to clarify which Joe we're talking about. And
Oh yeah, because they're both Joe B.
Joe B's, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. It's so annoying that we have the same first and last initials.
What's your middle name though, Joe? Joe.
Well,
Right?
I have two middle initials, actually.
Oh.
JLFB. What's the L?
You say that like you don't like
I'm gonna
it.
bleep that. I'm
No.
gonna bleep that in post because that's breaking anonymity.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Way to go, you outed me, Scott.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm an idiot.
You're not.
Joseph
we have technology.
Robinette Biden Jr. is his full name. Robinette.
Ah.
You know what?
What the hell?
I will
Kids
break
Robin.
anonymity for myself, and I will say that my middle name is Edelman, and I am proud of it.
That's pretty rad.
It makes me sound like more Jewish than I act. I cannot tell you the last time I went to temple, but it was not
Jewish
recent.
people, it's Bernie Sanders' 79th birthday today.
Oh, Mazel Tov.
And Gentiles don't care, I guess. What?
Isn't Rosh Hashanah coming up?
Yeah, that fucking is. It's on the. I'm giving my presentation at the general meeting on Rosh Hashanah. Yeah, it's a time. It's the month of Elul, y'all. Gotta forgive people that you have transgressed against.
Don't get so verklempt.
Oh, are we gonna?
Did you feel that from where you were sitting?
What was it?
What? No, I just heard a sound. Are we? Do we want to wrap things up, everyone?
Yes.
It is 11:30. Also, to get back to the topic of stepping on people's necks to get ahead.
Comrade Scott tells you what to watch.
There's a movie about that. It's a very good movie. It's called Us. It was directed by Jordan Peele. You should watch it. That was my recommendation. See, I did it in 5 seconds.
Ah,
I watched Parasite too, and that was fucking phenomenal. That was
Yeah, watch Parasite.
hella good. Super awesome.
Done
Good
it.
old bong.
And if you didn't see Peele's first movie, Get Out is also fabulous and
Oh, yeah.
everyone should see.
You should have already seen it, or we're not friends. JK.
All right, fine.
You can
Very
easily
good.
correct that. It's only 90 minutes
Me.
long.
It's real good.
Thanks.
Watch it.
All right, outro.
All right. Well, my name is Scott. You can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at DeathMullet. Joe.
Joe, I can be found at Instagram at JLFB. 1996, I believe.
Is that when you were born?
Yes, and so yeah, I got the handle right, and I'm on
We
Twitter
have
at-
very much doxed him tonight. Sorry,
We
guys.
are super doxing Joe. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. Guys, I can also be found on Twitter at JLFB96, and moving on to Kit.
Hi, I'm Kit. They, them. I can't be found on the internet because I'm scared of it.
That's a good perspective.
Yeah,
From a
honestly.
software developer, that's powerful.
Yeah, no, we're all buddies with good old Eddie Snowden.
Personal good friends with him.
I did make a shirt with his face on it once.
Oh, that's excellent.
Fun.
Ellie, go. Who are you?
I don't know. I'm Ellie. Yeah, I'm also scared of the internet, so you can listen to me on this podcast. Jesse, go.
I'm Jesse, and I'm not scared of the internet, but I am scared of
Yes.
Spiders?
no
Death, failure.
no, whatever. Fuck it. I'm Jesse, and you can find me on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/contingentsboston. And please remember to hit up comrade-rosie.org for resources in the greater Boston area pertaining to mental health and addiction treatment, as well as the mutual aid, which we have included in a new section on the website called Getting Involved, which lists a number of ways that you can do just that. Get involved.
As you heard it. That's right. Get involved. You can also find us on Twitter, on Facebook, and on, what is it, Patreon? Sorry.
We have a Patreon.
We have a Patreon, guys. Please, just give us $1 and come joke with us in our Discord. You can find all of that. Oh, and our Instagram. You can find all of this at Epic Incredulity. We also have a YouTube that the latest
Facebook.
episode. I said we have a Facebook. We also have a. It's okay, Joe. We also have a YouTube that the last week's episode is about to premiere on. And as always, get involved at Comrade Rosie, and that's your Epoch. Thank you.
Back up.
Joe, what are you doing?
What do you mean?
You're banging on a box in there?
Oh, no, this laptop can move because I just well,
Oh, it just said.
Banging on a trash can.
Something
Strumming on
on
a
a
street light. Strumming on a street light.
Oh, yes.
great parts of Two Bourgeois for that.
Jesus Christ. Wait, Joe, do you know Doug?
Doug.
He's not like a real person.
Okay. Because
Where's
that's
the
true.
show?
He just